and I'm very excited to be here with you at Michigan Works. I especially love the fact that part of your mission, part of what you do is educate and develop and train. That's so important. I spent 35 years, teaching college, so I understand the education process and how you have to continually move forward because, if you stand still, you're really losing ground. So that being said, I'm very, very excited to be here with you at Michigan Works. All right, next slide. Here we go. As you just heard David say, that I directed plays for 35 years, comedies, tragedies, musicals. And my job as a theater director was not to put a fabulous production up on the stage. Did I really just say that? Yes, I did. My job was not to put a fabulous production up on the stage. It was to treat everybody in such a way that they would want to put a fabulous production up on the stage. See the difference? That's a big difference. My job was not for me to shine. It was to make sure that everybody involved in the production had their opportunity to shine. And to do that, I needed to stop merely communicating and start clearly connecting. So what's the difference? Is there a big difference? Well, communicating, connecting, aren't they basically the same? Yes, and really no. If you want people to work for you, all you have to do is communicate. Tote that barge, lift that bale, you go here and you do that. But if you want people to work with you, to be part of what you're doing, you have to get to know them, engage them, encourage them, support them, not only in their work life, but their personal life as well. And that's the way you can connect. Next slide. There we go. That's the way that we can connect. George Bernard Shaw once said the problem with communication is the illusion that it has been accomplished. We can understand that. I'm going to take that phrase and twist it just a little bit and say the problem with communication is the illusion that we have connected. We have gone to that next step when most of the time we don't. So let me tell you a little story about connecting and communicating. Back in the 1980s, I went down to Nashville, Tennessee to be a writer. I got down there and I immediately needed a job. So I went to the Opry Complex, which has the Grand Ole Opry, Opryland Hotel, the Nashville Network, and an amusement park called Opryland. And I got myself a job as a security guard. I got to wear one of those Smokey the Bandit hats, yellow shirt, brown pants, cowboy boots, and on my hip was a trusty walkie-talkie. I tell you, I was good to go. So one day I was at the park, walking around the park, and this gentleman sees me, comes running up to me, and he says, excuse me, can you tell me where the car sale is? Next slide. Can you tell me where the car sale is? Well, I wasn't sure that I heard him correctly, so I said, can you say that again? He said, sure. Can you tell me where the car sale is? So I know up at the hotel, next slide, there have conventions, and they have an auto show, perhaps. So I said, okay, what you're going to need to do is leave the park, hop in your car, and go up to the hotel. And he looks at me and he says, no, the car sale. You know that thing with the wooden horses that goes round and round and up and down? Next slide. Oh, a carousel. And he said, that's what I've been explaining. So what happened here? Well, we had a failure to communicate. Thank you, Cool Hand Luke. We did not, he said car sale, and I heard car sale. We did not connect. We did not communicate. Now, does this ever happen in reality to any of us? Are any of you in any kind of relationship, spouses, girlfriends, boyfriends, anything like that? Does it ever happen? Sure. How many of you are parents? Well, you can put both your hands up in the air because it happens all the time as parents. So we understand the value of good communication. And what we want to do now is take that value and stretch it beyond so we can really learn to connect, which is our big question for the day. Can we connect? And this all starts with our understanding of people. Short people, tall people, left-handed people, right-handed people, people who are really nice and people who even really aren't very nice. People who get us excited when they enter a room and people who get us excited when they leave that room. But we need to understand them all. Why? Because we get to work with them. So it seems to me the better we can understand people, the more effective we are going to be at connecting with them. Next slide. So what we're going to do today is talk about connecting, harnessing the power of people, connecting with them in these three areas. Number one, ourselves. We need to understand ourselves and connect with ourselves first. Second is the others. This can be a person, a team, an organization, and then skills. The third part is skills. We're going to talk about 5 skills today that will help us go beyond communicating and really connecting. And what's wonderful about these skills is that they work whether they are in person or virtual. And we still have a lot of that. So that's really nice to know. Next slide. So here we are, ourselves, uncovering the authentic you. We can't understand others until we first understand ourselves. We cannot connect with others until we first connect with ourselves. As Shakespeare once said, to thine own self be true, which means you've got to know who you are and then act on it. You must do something with that knowledge. I have here in my hot little hand a piece of paper with some lines written, and I'm going to read this to us right now and tell me what you think. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I've got a wonderful feeling. Everything's going my way. Now, some of you might recognize these lines as the opening lyrics to the opening song of the musical Oklahoma, 1943, Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein II. Now, back when I was still teaching, I would sometimes teach a class in musical theater playwriting. And if one of my students came up for an assignment and handed in these lyrics, well, not these lyrics because that would be plagiarizing, but lyrics like these, I would read them and immediately hand them back and say, go write me something good. Next slide. And the next slide, go ahead, Walt, there. These lyrics are not good lyrics. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I've got a wonderful feeling. Everything's going my way. No, these are not good lyrics. But at the same time, they are great lyrics. Now, why? Because they speak to the character Curly. They speak to the play Oklahoma. But most assuredly, they speak from the heart of their creator, Oscar Hammerstein II. This is exactly who he was. Stephen Sondheim couldn't have written these lyrics. Cole Porter couldn't have written these lyrics. Lin-Manuel Miranda couldn't have written them. They could only have come from the pen of Oscar Hammerstein II because this is who he was. All right, next slide. If for some reason you're really not interested in musical theater, I don't know who you are, but let's say you're not. Sports. Vince Lombardi said, in all my years of coaching, I have never once been successful using somebody else's plays. What did he mean? Everything had to come from who he was, his authentic self. Now, this is true not only for people, but for organizations as well. In 1991, a Disney company came out with an animated musical called Beauty and the Beast. It was so successful that they immediately said, we need to try something different, something really risky, something we've never done before. Let's turn it into a stage show. Next slide. a stage musical. There we go, Beauty and the Beast. Now, this was a big risk, something they'd never done before, but they wanted to try it. So they sat around trying to figure out how to do this. And what to throw out, what to keep, how to change it to adapt to a New York audience, and especially the New York critics. So they were stymied. They were sitting there. They were absolutely stymied. They didn't know what to do. So finally, Michael Eisner, who was the CEO of Disney at the time, stepped in. And he said, we are not Stephen Sondheim. We are not Rodgers and Hammerstein. If we try to be, we will be second rate and fail. Next slide. We are Disney. This is a company that knew who they were. We are Disney. And of course, we know that Beauty and the Beast on the Broadway stage became a huge hit for them. Now, we like people like these. We like companies like this. Why? Because they know who they are, and we will follow them because of that. They're not chameleons who keep changing their minds, changing their directions, changing their philosophy and focus. No, they know who they are, and they act on it. So our sort of first question for today is, who are you? We've got to know ourselves as best we can before we move out into the world. So who are you? To help us identify sort of who we want to emulate, who we want to be like, I've narrowed it down because there are billions of people in the world, right? But I'm going to narrow it down to, if you're alive today, if you've ever seen a movie or watched TV or anything like that, you've got to know this very special group of people. Next slide. So who are you? We're going to narrow it down to superheroes, a group of superheroes. So what I want you to do is I want you to think of your absolute favorite superhero, right? You can either put it in the chat if you'd like, or just wherever you are in your house or office or wherever. On the count of three, I want you to yell out, I am, and then that superhero, right? With all your gusto of a superhero wanting to be there. Ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3. I am. Those are good ones. Adam Ant, Thor. Those are fabulous. Those are exactly right. I had one a couple months ago. I did this and somebody typed in mom. You can't argue with that. That is absolutely, there it goes. Spider-Man, Thor, Green Lantern. Oh, these are great. My son's father. Oh, I like that. All right, so we've got this idea. Now, next slide, please. We sort of have an idea of who we want to be like. Now, it's really important for us to take that and cause some kind of action we want you to know. So in the handout or on a piece of paper, I'd like you to create 2 columns. Now, we don't have a whole lot of time to do this, but we get the gist. Okay. We picked our superheroes. There's something very special about them. But we want to find out why. So on your paper, we've got these 2 columns. In the first column, I would like you to write down a belief that you have that you would like everybody to know about you. This is who you are. This might be that you are a person open to change, that you are a people person, that you are a person of integrity, that you are a creative person, anything like that that helps identify, this is who I am. This is really important. Now, this is nice, but if it just stays inside of you, that's not good. So we need that next column, that next step. Oh, I get along with all people. That's wonderful. That next step is, what actions can you take to let everybody else know that that's who you are? That is who you are. Let's say, I'm open to change. That's a big one because we all have got to change in this world today. So I'm open to change. Well, what are you going to do? Maybe an action could be that beside the suggestion box is a change box. Maybe on your desk or above your door, there's a great big sign that says, "We've always done it that way," with a great big X through it. You might go around to each of the departments and just say, what ideas do you have to make us better? Then people are going to know that you are open to change. And that is a really big action to take. Next slide, please. All right, so here, as we talk about this, a couple things to remember in this first section. Leading by example, showing your authentic self is not the main thing in influencing others. It really is the only thing. And the second point, bring your values to bear on every decision you make. No matter how big, no matter how small, it all must come from your authentic self. All right, so one of the great big values that we have is to, next slide, is to be able to listen. Next slide. The most important and powerful way that we can connect with somebody is to listen to them. The way that we value them is to listen to them. Now, this is hard for some of us. It is hard for me because I was always taught that, listening is a passive skill. It's giving away the power, but in actuality, it is just the opposite. There's an old adage that says, talk so people will want to listen. Talk so people will want to listen. There's nothing wrong with that. I like it. I agree with it. I have been to many a conference where I wish the speaker up at the podium understood that, but they seemed not to have. But for our purposes today, I want us to flip it. Next slide. Listen so people will want to talk. Next slide. Be curious about what they are curious about. Listen so that they will feel comfortable in sharing, so that they will express themselves and know that they are being heard. So, don't interrupt, listen, don't judge, listen. Don't think about what you're going to say next. Listen, just be there in the moment. As I told you, I went down to Nashville, Tennessee to be a writer, and I got a job writing for the Nashville Network. And I believe, from my experience, I believe that the toughest job that requires the absolute best listening skills is to be a talk show host. Next slide. Here we go. So I wrote for Nashville Now, which was a live 90-minute variety show on the Nashville Network, and it was on the Nashville Network. So 5 nights a week, live in front of a live audience there. My job was to write an opening monologue, any skits, ins and outs of commercials. And then the coolest thing I got to do was, before the show started, I got to interview all of the guests to find out what they wanted to talk about. So I'd ask them, what's on their mind, what is it? And then I would write these little blue cards. You've probably seen them on other talk show host guest desks. And then I would put it on the desk so that when the artist came out, he would know what they wanted to talk about. So one night, we had a guest host. And things were going well. Things were going great. The introduction to the artist was fine. The artist came out, sat down. The guest host picked up this card. Next slide. This is what he asked, exactly what he's supposed to. I hear you took some time off from the road for a little vacation. Where did you go? Perfect. Well, we went to Fiji. We laid on the beach, got some sun. We walked around, went swimming, deep sea fishing. As a matter of fact, there was a time when we were swimming with the sharks. And I have to tell you, I nearly lost my life. All right, just for fun, we've got this chat here. Just for fun, I'm going to make you the guest host. If you had just heard this, what would be a great next question to ask? Any thoughts? It's a little slow here. Do, 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 do. Can you tell us what happened? Right? Exactly. Tell me more. We're going to have a whole list of exactly those things because we were listening and we happened to be interested in what's going on. That's exactly right. That's perfect. You want to know what this guest host asked? Next slide. Here we go. So tell me about your new single. What the heck just happened? Well, he wasn't listening. He was too concerned about what he was going to say that he didn't hear this great possibility for a discussion. So how did this make the artist feel? Not very good, right? Has this ever happened to you? How did it make you feel? Not very good. I have to tell you, it's happened to me on both sides of the conversation, and it's just not a pretty thing to happen. All right, next slide, please. So the takeaways here. Your most important superpowers are knowing who you are, but just as importantly is to be able to act on them. And the most powerful way to value someone, to connect with them, is to listen to them. Because you must be present to win. And I love this last one, this last idea. Attention pays, so pay attention. Next slide. So we're going to move on to the others, to connecting with the others. Here, Ray Kroc of McDonald's fame, none of us is as good as all of us. And all we need of all of us connected to make it work. Next slide. In theater, we have this expression of directing is 90% casting because we want a really great team to be there. So 90% casting. Next slide. Let's see who said this. Which of the following directors? Next slide. A, Robert Altman. B, John Ford. C, Elia Kazan. D, Martin Scorsese. Next slide. Alfred Hitchcock. F, Scott Fitzgerald. And G, all of the above. David, you're doing great. G, all of the above. Which answer do you think it is? Well, we're all real good multiple choice test takers, aren't we? Yes. And of course, the obvious answer 99% of the time is G. Absolutely. Next slide. It is, yes, it is G. All of these directors, famous directors, Broadway and film, said this. Next slide. There is a little bit of an asterisk to it. Scott Ellis, the Broadway director, says it's actually 95% in the casting. Okay. So it's not just getting talented people, it's getting the right people. People who are willing to commit to the project and who are willing to be connected to the team. What's the old expression? The dream won't work if the team won't work. I think it's very evident here. Next slide. All right, this is me. I do a one-man show called Gateway Coming to America about immigrants that come through Ellis Island in the year 1907. I play Wilhelm Brenner. It's a one-man show. I'm on stage all by myself for the entirety of the production. And yet I cannot do this. I need a committed, talented group of people who are connected with me. Here I just put a short list of the people involved. Playwright, director, musical director, stage manager, costume designer, lighting designer, set designer, props master, sound engineer, dramaturg, box office personnel, and PR manager. And then with each of those groups, they have their own group. So we could be talking 50, 100 people just to make me on stage look like I know what I'm doing. Okay? So it really does take a team effort to get there. Okay, one more theater expression. Next slide, please. Here we go. There are no small parts. Does anybody know this? Does anybody guess what this is? Anybody heard this before? There are no small parts, only, and the drum rolls, small actors. Oh, very good. All right. Oh, we got a bunch of good, yes. There are no small parts, only small actors. What does that mean? Those are people that aren't committed to the project, that not enough stage time, not enough lines, they're not there, it's not worth their time. That's not a good thing. Next slide. So the traditional answer is small actors. I've got a better possibility. Next slide. I would like us to think there are no small parts, only key personnel. Everybody is involved. Everybody is important to this. Let me give you a quick example. There's a prop master who, before the show, puts out the different props needed in the production. There's supposed to be a weapon in the top dresser drawer so that during the production, the villain can go over to the drawer, open it up, pull out the weapon, and do his dastardly deed. Right? But the prop master says, you know what? It's a matinee, small group of people. I'm not sure I want to do it, so I'm not going to do it today. So during the performance, the villain goes over, opens the drawer, and there's nothing there. Do we have a problem? Yes, we've got a big problem. So it really is important. You're going to have a meeting. You are in charge of a meeting. And you're going to have people help you design the content. Somebody might design a PowerPoint. Somebody's going to design it. Somebody's going to load it onto the computer that's going to be used. Maybe there's going to be some kind of handouts. Somebody might create the handouts. Somebody might copy the handouts. Somebody might hand out the handouts. And then, of course, we've got to have the food, the coffee, the tea, the fruit, the donuts, all of that, really important part. Any of that missing, we've got a problem. I tell my actors that sometimes they carry the show, sometimes they carry a spear, but they always carry the responsibility of being a key personnel. Next slide. So to make a team work, the team members need to have these qualities to them. Exude the right attitude, are diverse in experience and talent. All right, you've got a meeting, a new person's showing up, one of the old meeting people come up and say, you know what, I'm not sure she's going to fit in because she doesn't think like us. What is your response? Exactly. That's why you brought her in, just for that. Offer unique perspective, demonstrate a responsibility to themselves and the others, believe in their ownership. Next slide. We only have time to do some of these, so I've picked two: attitude and responsibility. Attitude. It's the cornerstone to just about everything. Earl Nightingale, the famous author and speaker, said, attitude is a cornerstone of it all. Bart Starr, the famed quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, said, next to love, the most important word in the English language is attitude. I used to be an artistic director for a theater company called Theater West, Summer Repertory Company. And my job was to go around the country hiring talent. Okay? And yes, I wanted talent, absolutely, but I was looking for people with the right attitude, because these people were going to be spending a lot of time together. In the morning, they would be building sets, hanging lights, sewing costumes, in the afternoon rehearsing, and in the evening performing. So I needed people with the right attitude that were going to do anything needed for them to do. That, yes, I do windows, okay? Because people with the right attitude are positive people. Positive people attract positive people. Positive people create positive results. And positive people always give their very best. There's a comedian by the name of Steve Martin, wild and crazy guy, arrow through the head, banjo player. He, early in his career especially, he did a one-man show. One-man show. Went all across the country doing his one-man show. Well, one night he was at a club and he walked out on stage and he outnumbered the audience. You get it? He outnumbered. There was nobody there. Cypher, zilch, right? Nobody there. So what did he do? Well, he did his show. That's what he got paid to do. That's what he wanted to do. He did his show. In the back of the club, the doors were open and people were walking by and saw and said, oh my goodness, this this guy's really interesting. I'm going to come in and watch the show. So by the end of that first set, he had a respectable crowd gathered, but it was all because of his attitude. I had a friend, next slide, please, who would come. Now we're going to have a little diversion here with some music, but it's really important. So think about the lyrics of what's going on. I had a friend who every day would come in and say, you know what, I just think I got up on the wrong side of the bed. And I kept thinking, well, there's really no wrong side of the bed. It's just what you choose to do. Because you can sit up and be as grouchy as can be, or you can sit up, put your feet on the floor, stand up, stretch, and say, boy, today is going to be a great day. So that's sort of the inspiration for this. As we go along, if you feel like you'd like to hum along or even sing, I encourage that. That would be absolutely wonderful. If you've got some pots and pans, pencils or anything that you want to just, shake back and forth with, pound on the table, that would be great. Oh, somebody's singing already. So we've got a little introduction here. There'll always be gray clouds. There'll always be rain, but that doesn't mean we need to always sit and complain. Why don't we try a different attack and knock those gray clouds flat on their back? Let's always look at the bright side, never try to run and hide. Everybody's gonna take a spill. Well, what you wanna do is fold up. You'll get up on your feet and dust off your shoes. Ain't no reason to sing no blues. Step out in the world and say, today is gonna be my day. Go ahead and face the challenge. Take the risk, don't be afraid. When life throws you lots of lemons, that's when you make lemonade. Here we go, chorus, and always look at the bright side. Never try to run and hide. Everybody's gonna take a spill. Well, what you wanna do is fold up. You'll get up on your feet, dust off your shoes. Ain't no reason to sing no blues. Step out in the world and say, today is gonna be my day. Life's not fair, no doubt about it, but don't sit around and fret. Things turn out the best for those who make the best of what they get. One more time, man. Always look at the bright side. Never try to run and hide. Everybody's gonna take a spill. Well, what you wanna do is fold up. You'll get up on your feet and dust off your shoes. Ain't no reason to sing no blues. Step out in the world and say, today is gonna be my day. Stand up tall and start again. That's the only way to win. You may be down, but you are never out. So shout it out so all can hear you say, today is gonna be. Today is gonna be my day. Today is gonna be my day. Oh, there we go. I'd much rather do that than wake up and say, boy, today's going to be a lousy day. Okay, can we go to the next slide, which happens to be the verse that I sang? Go ahead and face the challenge. Take the risk. Don't be afraid. When life throws you lots of lemons, that's when you make lemonade. Next slide. Back to the chorus. Next slide is the second verse. Life's not fair, no doubt about it, but don't sit around and fret. Things turn out the best for those who get the best of what they get. Make the best of what they get. Next slide. So, even in this lighthearted song, I think lots of little tiny messages that really pertain to us. Okay, next slide. Now we're good. Responsibility. Rehearsal starts at 7:00. I'm the director. I come in and I sit down and about 7:15, get things all ready to go. When I walk in, I expect the stage manager to have swept the floor, set up the rehearsal pieces, the rehearsal prop pieces. I expect the actors to be warming up their bodies and their voices so that at 7 o'clock, our stage manager, she can call out places and away we go. 7 o'clock is not the time for an actor to say, can we have 10 minutes to warm up? That's not responsible. It's a very simple way to be responsible. All right. You're encouraging responsibility at your organization. How do you do that? It's a really tough thing to do. I'm just going to take one little moment. We have production meetings. You have department meetings of all kinds, right? So when you have a meeting, really make it a meeting that includes everyone. If you invite someone to the table, you need to invite their voices. Really important. Invite them to the table, invite their voices. If you invite them into the room, you need to invite them into the community. They're not just there just for that 1 hour of the meeting. They have to be involved with everybody there. We've got a problem that in a play, somebody has to magically sort of pick up this pickle barrel, and you know how heavy pickle barrels are, with 2 fingers and magically just make it lift. All right, so I'm the director. I come into the meeting and say, okay, we've got this problem lifting a pickle barrel, and this is how we're going to do it. What do you think? Are people going to be really willing to share their ideas? They're going to say, that sounds good to me. But what if you come in and say, we've got this problem with the pickle barrel, and I want to know what everybody thinks is the best way to do it. And you go around the room and you get all their ideas. Aren't you going to get a better response to that? They are going to be more responsible, knowing going in that they will be heard, that they will get to say something meaningful. And who knows where it's going to end up, the action that you're going to take. But everybody knows that they are responsible. Next slide. As we leave the other section, the middle section here, are some of the takeaways. There are no small parts, only key personnel. Every job matters, and every person in that job matters. Talent, yes. Attitude, double yes. Surround yourself with positivity, books, podcasts, people, everything that is in that positive realm. And demonstrate your ability to handle the potholes of life. Okay? Always look at the bright side. Be able to flip it. Next, please. So we've got 5 amazing skills and strategies. Now we get to this third part. So our goal here is that everyone is invested, everyone is involved, everyone is valued, and then all of that together will get people connected. That's really, really important. So number 1. All right, number 1 is so important. It embodies absolutely everything. I'm going to leave it to last. So we're going to hold off on number 1. We're going to start with number 2. Next slide. Number 2. Number 2, one size doesn't fit all. This is not a cookie cutter business that we are in. Every cast I've ever directed, every meeting that you've ever had, a new meeting, it's going to be different because you have different people in it and different personalities that you have to adjust to. There's a very famous basketball player by the name of Grant Hill, played at Duke, and then was a great NBA player as well. At Duke, he played for Coach Krzyzewski, Coach K, and later on, Coach K asked him to write a preface to one of his books. And in that preface, Grant Hill says, he was there for 4 years at Duke. He said, in that preface, he says, my 4 years at Duke, Coach K, who is arguably one of the best coaches alive today and perhaps of all time, but every year he coached that team different. He didn't make them totally mold to him. He molded to the talent around him. He got the best out of everybody that was on that team. So we want to make sure to get the very, very best out of them. And that means you're going to have to be open and unique. Next. So it is all about the people. Be flexible, be open, be creative as you work with these people. Okay. Yes, I didn't say that he played for the Pistons, and he did, of course. Next slide, please. Number 3, patiently persistent. There's a rehearsal down on stage, and it's not going well. They're fumbling around. They're lost. I'm sitting up halfway in the auditorium. Next to me is my stage manager. She leans over and she says, "Do you see what's happening?" And I say, "Yes." And she says, "What are you going to do about it?" And that's a great question. What do you do and when do you do it? You don't want to step on their opportunity to discover and create themselves. If I go down right now at that moment and say, "That's wrong, that's bad, here's how I want you to do it," what is that going to do to their psyche, to their creativity? And every time in the production, when that line comes up, they will be lost, and suddenly my interpretation of that line will show up, and then they'll get back to it. So that is a really bad thing. We want to help them. We want to ask open question, guiding question, helpful questions to move them forward. And sometimes where we end up is not going to be totally mine, but it might be mine and theirs together, something that I'm very comfortable with. Next slide. So here's takeaway. Lead with a helpful heart, not a hurtful heart. Always so very, very important. Lead with a helpful heart. The first decision is to know when to make that first decision. At what point do you step in? If there's a deadline, you might have to, might be sooner, but you really want them to find this themselves, and you're going to guide them forward with that. Next slide. Admire and inspire. There's always something to admire. I have worked with Broadway actors, and I've worked with neophytes who've never been on stage before. And there's always something there that you can boost them up with. I had an actor who could not walk across the stage and have it look natural. He just couldn't. And if you've ever been called up on stage in front of 500 people, suddenly you forget how to walk, right? Yes. So you understand that. But to finally get him just to look natural walking across the stage was something really exceptional, something that I could admire. Then you're going to want to inspire them. During the rehearsal process, let's say that we have a scale of 1 to 10, that eventually we want as many people as possible up to that 8, 9, and 10 range by opening night. Well, some of my really good actors might be at 8 and 9s early, while others are going to be struggling at 2, 3s, and 4s. Well, I don't want to ignore the 8s and 9s. What I want to do is I want to take that and move that they've given me back to 5s and 6s. Set new goals and new challenges, new goals, new challenge, so that they have something more to move up to. So what are some of these goals? Next slide, please. We've heard of SMART goals. Okay, here are some clear goals to add to that. Next slide. Clear, challenging. Challenging. It has to be something challenging that you want to be invested in. My wife and I, during the past year and a half, spent a lot of time doing jigsaw puzzles. So we got online and we were looking for, new jigsaw puzzles to do. 300, 500 is a good challenge. So I was at the site and I noticed that the very first column they had was 1 through 10. 1 through 10. I don't know how challenging a one-piece jigsaw puzzle can be. So that's not very challenging. 300, 500, perfect. Limited, limitless. So you start out with an immediate goal that can then bloom into others. There's a scientist at 3M by the name of Art Fry, who at church, he would stick these little pieces of paper into his hymnal to keep track of the songs, but the pieces of paper would always fall out. So he said, what I need to do is develop something that's a little sticky that I can put in there and it will stay, but it won't rip the paper when I take it out. So he had a very limited goal of what he wanted to do. So he started to work on that. And all of these other people came in and said, this is a great idea. The possibilities are limitless. So things changed. It was limited, yes, but it grew into limitless. And of course, what we're talking about are Post-it notes. Yes, Post-it notes. Evolvable. We've done this for a year and a half. Evolvable, that we used to go from A to Z. And now we go from A to 14 to Mars, to Madison, and eventually wind up in Q and R and S. Okay, so we understand evolvable. Something that is attainable through time, talent, and budget. Sir Richard Branson just went to the outskirts of space, right? Did he have the time? Took him 17 years. Did he have the talent? He hired great people, and he had the money. He had the money to do that. So what is it within your budget and your time? Written. Now, I grew up on reading, writing, and arithmetic, so written. But if you're a purist, recordable is acceptable as well, because we want to be able to keep track of where we've been, what succeeded, what failed, and why, so that we can continually move forward. Next slide. And one more. So here are the takeaways here for Admire to Aspire. Establish attainable goals and then readjust them. Support exploration. Support exploration as we go through. Next slide. Collaborative approach. What are the best ways that we have to reach people? Next. Here are some of the ways that I work with people to get the best out of them. I don't know. Let's figure it out together. Can you try something else? Can we try something else? That was an amazing choice. How can we build on that? My favorite, the one I use all the time, don't worry. That's why we rehearse. Next slide. So here are the takeaways. Vulnerability is a gift. Embrace it. Notice I didn't demand from these people what to do. We said, let's work through this together. I'm not the ultimate end all be all. So it makes you a stronger leader when you are vulnerable. Be equal. Share the power. Everybody has ideas. Everybody we want to include. Next. All right, here's number one, guys. Here is number one. We are almost there. Create an environment of serious fun. This is so important. And it's not frivolity. Serious fun is where we can be creative and enjoy. Fun is not a four-letter word. If you can read the screen there. Fun is not a four-letter word. If you want people to come in early and stay late, you make it fun. If you want people to be creative and take risks, you make it fun. If you want people to stay and be a part of what you're doing, you make it fun. Fun creates community. Fun creates connectiveness. And this starts at the top with each one of us. We are responsible for creating that fun. Back when I was in high school, I went to a concert. Next slide, please. Here, I went to a concert with Roger Miller. Roger Miller, King of the Road, Do-Wah-Ka-Do, Dang Me, Dang Me. Great songs, hugely popular back then. You walk in, you sit down, and he walks on stage, and you immediately know you're going to have a great time. He is so excited. He is so effervescent to be there. You just know you're going to have a great time. Oh, and I have to tell you, we were doing the show, and it was going great. It was fabulous. Oh, we were so involved, so connected. But right in the middle of one of the songs, he stopped. And he looked at the audience and said, you guys are the best audience I think we've ever had. And because of that, we're going to do some songs we don't normally put in the show. So he turns back to the band. He says, do you remember that song? And they talk about it and say, yeah. And he says, do you remember what key we used to play it in? And they figured it out, and off they went. They played 4, 5, 6 songs that weren't in their normal show. Wow. What a great experience. We left that just soaring. We were so happy. About a week later, I got a call from one of my friends, and he says, "Hey, we're going to go see Roger Miller tonight, and we have an extra ticket. Would you like to go?" What do you think I said? Absolutely, I would. Yes, yes, yes. So we were there. We were sitting there. It was great. Things were really nice. He was connecting with us. It was wonderful. But in the back of my mind, I kept saying, "This is nice, but it's not going to be that extra special concert that we got last week." Then something very strange happened. Right in the middle of one of the songs, he stopped. And he said, "You guys are the best audience we've ever had. We're going to do something special. Put some songs in that we don't normally put in the show." Turn to the band. Yep, they knew it. The key. Yep, they knew it. And off they went. Wow. As I left that night, two things were going through my mind. One, just a little tiny bit, I was disappointed that I didn't get that extra special show. But everybody got it. Meaning he connected with everybody every show. He shared so much fun. It was absolutely miraculous. Many years later, when I was writing for television, I had a chance to talk with Roger Miller. He was on the show. So before the show, I interviewed him and we talked. And after we got done the normal stuff, I asked him about this moment. Next slide. And this is what he said. "I just want to share the fun." That's what he wanted to do. I just want to share the fun. And that's exactly what he did. Just share that fun. Next slide. So the takeaways here: share your personal joy. You make sure that your joy that comes from deep inside of you, who you are, gets out and you share it. No matter at what level you think you might be, you are always the person to include the joy, the fun. Make serious fun a priority, a hallmark of your culture. All right, here we go. Last slide. Final thoughts. This is by John D. Rockefeller. "The ability to deal with people is as purchasable a commodity as sugar or coffee, and I will pay more for that ability than any other under the sun." What ability is he talking about? He's talking about the ability to connect with people, not communicate one way, but connect back and forth to really get to know people. And that he will pay more for anything. So the ability to really, really connect. So if you can connect, you can make a difference. You can be an influencer. You can be a trainer. You can develop people. You can raise not only yourself, but your organization as well. So I'm wondering, are you ready to do that? Are you ready to go back to your office, to your work, and really try to connect with people? Because you can do it. You've got the skills. You know how, but it takes time and energy. So can you do that? Because what you need to do is stop merely communicating and start clearly connecting. Next slide. So that's what I've got to say today. I really appreciate it. I've been sort of glancing at the messages over to the side, and I appreciate all of them. And I really appreciate the time. I'm willing to talk to anybody. My email is there. My website has it. So if you have any questions for me, I would love to chat with you later. I don't know if we have any time now. I know that we got started a little bit late, but and David, well done on those slides. Thank you so very much. You did a great job with it.
I found it. Yes,
talent. Yes, you do. I'm going to take you on the road with me.
Great. I put a survey in the chat box, and I have to tell you, I think we have a little bit of time. Okay. I'm just looking here. It only gives the starting time, but certainly if someone.
Well, it was 1 to 2, but I'm open.
Yeah. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, somebody asked if I can email the slides, and I certainly can. I don't know if I get a chance to get a copy of all the chat notes. That would be great if that's possible. My
Yeah,
email.
that would be up to Motown, but we
Okay.
can certainly ask. They do a
Okay.
great job. So yeah.
My website is philipjmartin1l.me. My email is phil@philipjmartin.me. Be happy to stay in touch with anybody about this. That would be fabulous. And yes, I would love to send either a synopsis of the speech or the slides, whatever piece people would like. That would be great.
Actually, I'm seeing here in the chat that we will have all the slides on the Michigan Works website.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So
simple enough.
There's probably going to be a multiple ways people can access the information going forward for the presentation and the general sessions and whatnot.
Great.
Oh, I got it. Let me try the survey again. It's a little bit higher up because it scrolled up pretty fast. So there it is. It just says formsoffice.com. And this is where they're gonna. You could open it up too, Phil, if you wanted to in the chat. Just click on it. That's
okay. Now, what am I? Polls?
It says forms. It's the last item in the chat. If you just click on it, that's the survey that we're asking everyone to take.
I don't have a form. I've got a Q&A, people, polls, and chat.
Oh, go to chat. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm at chat.
And then scroll all the way down. And that's the poll that we're having everybody do there under my name, Forms Office, forms.office.com.
Okay.
And if anyone has any questions they want to maybe, because there's so much in the chat and I didn't look at it while we were working, go ahead and type them in now and we'll get them to Phil before we close out. We still have 49 people here, so.
It's your afternoon siesta time now.
Yeah, I teach a class at 3, so yeah.
Oh, where do you teach?
Job skills. Yeah, for
through the
it's
works?
online. It's
fabulous.
For the youth, it's resume writing, job search skills, cover letters, things like that. Yeah.
Well, here's the forms. I see where we are now.
Yeah. So it looks like everybody has moved on, and there's no more questions. So, and we got a thumbs up, and that's always good.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
You got it. You got it. Have a good rest of your day, Phil, and everybody in the audience, and check out stuff that's still in the general session that will be coming up, and some of the other exhibitor hall items.
Super.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So, Dave, who should I contact about trying to get these comments from the chats?
I would say Motown, like the gentleman that you were speaking to early on. Yeah. Because that's something that they would be able to get a download on.
Excellent.
Get your feedback. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Dave.
Bye-bye.